The Underneath, Part 3, House. What the heck is that? Adeena exclaimed, backing away from the dummy. She already told you her name, Ahab teased as he sat down. She's an Annie, like the big one you met at the playground. She ran into an Annie? John asked. Are you two okay? Yes, your fake ID trick worked like a charm, Ahab replied, nodding. Though we did encounter some sleep police, but we gave those guys the slip too. The slip, Adeena thought, shuddering as images of bones crushed between massive jaws filled her head. That's one way to put it. What am I even doing here? She demanded. Are you two going to tell me where Natik is? Ahab and John traded glances before the former spoke. He's in a secure holding facility called the Playground. Adeena felt the blood drain from her face. Why is he there? He's 8. This is not about your brother, John sighed. It's about his doppelganger in the real world. You mean the overhead, Ahab corrected, and John smiled sheepishly. Right. I remember Ahab mentioning earlier that there are versions of us here, Adeena responded. What does that have to do with Natik? Ahab looked at John. You want to tell her? John collapsed into a nearby chair, and Trina stood up on the table, hopping into his lap and lying still without a word. Not long ago, I was a bodyguard for a high-level political leader, John began, specifically for his daughter. Her friend had recently been involved in an abduction attempt, an attempt which I now know was foiled by Ahab here. Ahab shrugged sheepishly. Unfortunately, the girl I was assigned to protect became convinced she was being followed. After the experience with her friend, I took her seriously, but it was too late. These men, the sleep police, they came for her, murdering nearly a dozen people in the process. I was lucky to survive. They didn't realize that stabbing me through the eye with a screwdriver wasn't enough to keep me from my duties. He tapped on his black eye patch before continuing. Imagine my surprise when I wake up to a house full of corpses. No more sleep police. Yet somehow, miraculously, the girl is still in her room, curled up and crying. Oh, Adeena frowned. So they failed? John shook his head. That's what they wanted us to think. And, honestly, that was what I wanted to believe for a while. It was a convenient answer. He reached down, stroking the dummy's curly brown hair. But this was not my girl. This was not the person I had grown to know. She was different, smarter than she'd ever been, but twice as mean. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to approach it, until I found this in her room. He picked up a small, flesh-colored mask from a nearby table, showing it to Adeena. It wasn't your girl at all, Adeena said, realization dawning. It was her underneath version. At the time, I didn't know anything about the underneath, John admitted. However, I'd seen enough strange activity lately to keep an open mind. I confronted the imposter, and she pulled some kind of weapon on me, something I'd never seen before or since. We struggled, and in the process, I shot her. Adeena covered her mouth with her hands in horror. John averted his gaze. I knew I was done. Life in prison. So I raided her room of any other strange-looking technology and bolted. I've spent the last few months trying to reverse engineer what happened that night to get some answers. Luckily, Ahab found out what I was doing and got to me before the sleep police did. With this information, Ahab added, we did some more research and discovered that the event was not uncommon. All around the world, children of prominent figures in industry, politics, and independent wealth have reported being watched or attacked in the last few years. All of the complaints disappear after a few days. They're being replaced, Adeena gasped. Is that happening in the overhead right now? Are a new Natik and Adeena heading back to my parents? Maybe, Ahab answered. No offense, but your family doesn't really fit the profile of wealth or power or status that they normally target. I think this was a genuine accident, and the sleep police took advantage of the situation to get one more agent or spy or saboteur into the overhead. Ahab's been tracking their activities, John continued. Beyond replacing children, the sleep police are also creating unrest in the overhead. They're exploiting their knowledge of gaps to cause major disasters in key economic and political areas. There have been some incidents, Ahab added. We think they're manipulating events so that, when the dust settles, their underneath infiltrators are the ones left in power. God knows what the sleep police will do to the overhead once they've gained control of it. John said that you stopped one of the abduction attempts, Adeena mentioned to Ahab. Why didn't you stop the others? Well, first of all, gap predictions aren't a reliable science, Ahab admitted. I don't have the ability to always finitely predict sleep police activities before they happen. Beyond that, though, were my limited methods. What do you mean? Adeena asked. Well, when I rescued the girl from her would-be captors, I used Trina. Ahab gestured at the dummy resting in John's lap. Right, you said she was an Annie, Adeena commented. Ahab nodded. Yes, short for animatronic. Decades ago, child scientists in the underneath perfected artificial intelligence. Being children, they implanted their creation into dolls and other lovable friends of their own creation. However, the mentally deteriorating adults in power felt threatened by this, fearing that this would be the moment that the children took away their control. So, they legislated that Annies could only be used as security or as playthings, and the AI was stripped of its personality, its independence, and any social intelligence beyond that of an overhead version of a small child. Digital eugenics, basically, John added. Yes, Ahab agreed. Anyway, I found this small Annie discarded one day, and I've been trying to repair her both mentally and physically ever since. She's still a little unstable, though, and after her first rescue mission, I wasn't comfortable using her in the field like that again. So, who controls the Annies now? Adeena asked. We thought it was the International Underneath Government, Ahab answered. However, it now seems to be the Sleep Police, assuming those two organizations aren't one and the same. Adeena thought for a moment. How many Annies are there? Oh, millions, Ahab said. Small toy Annies to watch our homes, large hulking Annies to patrol the streets, even the birds. The underneath's natural predators led to an avian extinction long ago. Now, the birds you see are all Annies, mechanical spies who can be anywhere in minutes. Really? Adeena frowned. But I saw a bird near your house when we got here. What? John and Ahab yelled in unison, jumping to their feet. Trina tumbled out of John's lap, but deftly twirled through the air, landing on her feet. Yeah, Adeena pointed behind her. It flew back toward the town. Suddenly, a red light began flashing in the room, and a message appeared on all of the monitors. Proximity alert. Ahab rushed to one of the screens, and the words flickered away, replaced with security footage of at least a dozen sleep policemen, readying various tools as weapons. Where's that camera? Adeena squeaked. John rushed to a metal locker in the back of the room, opening it. It's right outside. Heavy knocks on the front door. John tossed something to Ahab, and the boy caught it, revealing what appeared to be a bright red toy pistol designed like a 1950s-era ray gun. Ahab fiddled with a switch on the side, and the barrel glowed orange. The boy had noticed Adeena staring at the device. Heat ray, he said, classic underneath tech. Adeena saw John pull a short, black rifle out of the locker. Is that an underneath weapon too? She asked. John opened a breech on the side of the rifle, loading cartridges into it. This is a shotgun. Call me old-fashioned. He pumped the weapon, chambering around. What do I do? Adeena asked. Ahab turned around, handing her some kind of dial. You are getting out of here, through the back and into the park. They won't follow you there. Thunderous banging on the door now, and Adeena saw the sleep policeman using a battering ram through the security monitors. She took the dial, gulping against her parched throat. I thought you said the forest was dangerous. I said it's only really dangerous in the thorny areas, Ahab responded. That's where the worst nests are. Use this compass to get out to the other side. Cardinal directions are inverted in the underneath, so the needle points south, but you're actually going to be headed southeast. Stay in that direction until you see sidewalk again, and wait there. We'll come find you. The door burst open, and the sleep police flooded inside, readying their weapons. John took aim, firing a shotgun blast into the nearest intruder, who flew backwards into his comrades. Ahab followed suit, pulling the trigger of his ray gun, and another sleep policeman burst into flames, waving his arms in pain as he ran back out the door. "Trina!" Ahab yelled. "Play rough." The dummy's head began to spin around. "Don't play rough with my friends." A sleep policeman rushed forward, sporting a kitchen knife, but Trina intercepted, barreling into his shin and toppling him. He tried to return to his feet, but Trina grabbed his arm, twisting it. Something snapped, and the sleep policeman squirmed, dropping his knife. Trina scooped it up and buried it into the back of his skull, like a carving knife into a jack-o'-lantern. He fell still, twitching. John and Ahab fired into the gathering crowd as their animatronic assistant leapt into the fray, slashing and gouging at the attackers. Adeena backed away from the action, shaking from the burst of adrenaline. "Go!" Ahab yelled. "We've got this!" Turning on her heels, Adeena sprinted into the back hallway. When she reached for the rear door, it burst open, and a hatchet-wielding sleep policeman strode inside. She gasped, staggering backwards, and she thought for a moment she saw his plastic face twist into a smile. Then, Trina was there, scaling his leg like a mountain climber. He tried shaking her off, but she wouldn't let go, the kitchen knife firmly gripped between her painted lips. The sleep policeman swung his hatchet down at her, but she swiveled out of the way at the last moment, and he buried the weapon into his own leg. As he writhed in pain, Trina climbed up his back, straddling his shoulders like a child demanding a piggyback ride. Before he could react, she retrieved the knife from her mouth and began stabbing him in the neck repeatedly. Blood sprayed from the arterial wounds, and the sleep policeman collapsed, exposing Adeena's portal to freedom. Thanks, Trina," she said to the now blood-covered dummy, who ignored her and rushed back toward John and Ahab. "Remember," Ahab yelled at Adeena's back as she sprinted into the trees. "Beware the thorns."